Underneath all of this is a quiet fear most people who hate people won't admit, even to themselves. The fear that if you let your guard down, you'll be proven right again. That the moment you trust, someone will take, betray, misunderstand, or disappear. So you stay alert, you stay distant. You keep your expectations low and your exits planned. You tell yourself you're protecting your peace, but what you're really protecting is a wound that never got to heal properly. As time goes on, the hatred becomes less about others and more about avoidance. Avoiding vulnerability. Avoiding dependence. Avoiding the uncomfortable truth that humans are messy and inconsistent and still necessary. Because admitting that you need people after deciding you hate them feels like weakness. It feels like losing an argument you've been making internally for years. So the mind doubles down. It reframes isolation as clarity. It reframes detachment as strength. But here's where something unsettling happens. The longer you hold this position, the harder it becomes to tell whether you dislike people because they're disappointing, or because disliking them keeps you from being disappointed at all. Hatred becomes preventative. It keeps hope at a distance. And hope, for someone who's been burned, is the most dangerous emotion of all. At some point, you may notice a strange emptiness. Not sadness exactly, more like absence. Conversations don't irritate you anymore, but they don't interest you either. You're not angry at the world. You're disengaged from it. And that's when the psychology turns inward. When you strip people of meaning, you also strip moments of meaning. Joy becomes muted. Curiosity fades. Life feels smaller, quieter, flatter, safe but sterile. The mind will try to justify this. It will say you're selective, that you're just honest, that you see through illusions others still cling to, and maybe some of that is true. But there's a question that lingers beneath all of it, one that doesn't go away no matter how convincing the story sounds. What if the hatred isn't proof that you're above people, but evidence that you were once too open with the wrong ones? Because people who truly don't care about connection don't feel the need to announce their hatred. They don't analyze humanity. They don't replay interactions in their head. They don't feel tension when someone gets close. The intensity of the rejection reveals the intensity of what's being defended against. Indifference doesn't need armor. Pain does. And here's the part that changes how you see yourself if you let it sink in. Hating people doesn't mean you lack empathy. It often means you have too much of it, without the protection or reciprocity that makes it sustainable. It means you learned early that being emotionally available had consequences, so you shut the door instead of negotiating the terms. It means you decided it was better to be alone by choice than abandoned by surprise. If any of this feels uncomfortably familiar, that's not an accident. The mind recognizes itself when it's being described accurately. And now you're left with a tension that doesn't resolve cleanly. Because if your hatred is a shield, then dropping it feels dangerous. But carrying it forever comes with a quiet, cumulative cost. You don't just keep people out. You keep parts of yourself locked away too. The parts that could still be surprised. The parts that could still feel something real. The most unsettling realization isn't that people can be disappointing. You already know that. It's that the story you tell yourself about hating people might be the last thing standing between you and the risk of wanting something again. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. You can keep the distance, you can keep the armor, but somewhere in the back of your mind, a question will linger, unresolved and persistent. Not whether people deserve you, but whether you're willing to live a life where they never get the chance to. There's a question most people are afraid to ask out loud, because once you ask it, you can't unhear the answer. What if the reason some people say they hate everyone isn't anger at all, but something quieter, colder, and much more familiar than you'd like to admit? What if that reaction you feel when someone talks too much, needs too much, expects too much, isn't irritation, but defense? And what if the people who swear they hate people aren't broken in the way you've been told, but built that way for a reason that once kept them alive? People who hate people don't usually start that way. No child looks at the world and decides humanity is unbearable. It happens slowly, invisibly, in moments that never make it into memory as clear scenes. It happens when someone learns that being open costs too much. When every interaction feels like a negotiation you didn't agree to. When you realize that caring is expensive and nobody refunds the cost. So the mind adapts. It begins to pull back. Not dramatically, not angrily, but strategically. The easiest way to stop being disappointed is to stop expecting. The easiest way to stop being hurt is to stop needing. And the easiest way to do that is to decide people aren't worth it. Here's the part most people miss. Hatred in this form isn't explosive, it's flat. It's emotional numbness wearing a harsh label. People who say they hate people often aren't overwhelmed by rage. They're exhausted by exposure. Every conversation feels like noise. Every social obligation feels like a performance. Every relationship feels like work with unclear pay. So they reduce the problem. They generalize. They say everyone is selfish, stupid, fake, or cruel. Not because it's always true, but because it simplifies the world into something manageable. If people are all the same, you don't have to keep learning them. You don't have to keep hoping. If you listen closely, you'll hear something else underneath that hatred. Hyper-awareness. These people notice everything. Tone shifts, micro-expressions, contradictions, the way someone smiles while lying, the way kindness turns transactional. They see patterns early before others do. And that's not a gift, it's a burden. When you see how often people say one thing and mean another, when you notice how conditional empathy really is, it becomes hard to relax around anyone, so you don't. You detach. You decide distance is safer than closeness, because closeness always reveals something disappointing eventually. This creates a strange contradiction. People who hate people often understand people deeply. They can read motives, predict behavior, and sense emotional undercurrents with uncomfortable accuracy. That's exactly why they withdraw. Knowing too much makes you tired. Empathy without boundaries burns you out. So the mind flips the switch. Instead of feeling everything, it feels nothing. Instead of curiosity, it adopts contempt. Contempt is easier to carry than grief. Disgust weighs less than disappointment. At some point, the hatred becomes part of identity. Not loudly, not proudly, but privately. It becomes a filter through which every interaction passes. If someone is kind, you assume it's temporary. If someone is generous, you wait for the hidden cost. If someone listens, you wonder what they want. This mindset feels like realism, not bitterness. It feels intelligent. It feels earned. And that's the dangerous part, because it rewards itself. Every time someone confirms your expectations, the belief hardens. Every time someone surprises you, you dismiss it as an exception. The story stays intact. But there's a cost that rarely gets acknowledged. When you decide people are unbearable, you also decide connection is impossible. You may tell yourself you prefer solitude, that you're independent, that you're above social need. Yet there's a low-grade loneliness humming in the background when you don't quite name. It shows up as irritability, as impatience, as a sense that the world is constantly asking too much of you. You're not craving people. You're craving safety with people. And because that feels unattainable, hatred becomes a substitute.